all right. We will convene back for the last time today. I realize I've said all right a lot of times today. I need to get new material. But yeah, for our last talk today, we'll be doing a bystander training led by Brooke Engel. Brooke is a San Diego native. She went north to California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo? Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. My reading comprehension skills are still learning. For chemistry before returning to San Diego. Brooke has been at HP, Hewlett-Packard Company, for 9 years. Until recently, she was part of the analytical chemistry laboratory supporting R&D, customer escalations, and manufacturing investigations. She's now a program manager and chemist supporting ink manufacturing and qualifications to ensure supply and quality. Please welcome Brooke Engel.
Good afternoon. How about we have one more session? You know, we'll cap off the day at a highlight. But welcome in. This is going to be a very interactive session, so being in tables, having people to chat with. We want to have a few different scenarios, and we're going to talk through all the different options and ways we can go about things. So we'll go ahead and get started. As Sophie mentioned, my name is Brooke Engel. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, is the easy way of saying it. But California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo. I now work at HP. I've been an analytical chemist for about 8.5 years there and have just recently switched into our manufacturing. And when I say I work with ink, I don't work on your home printers. I work on presses that are like the length of this room. So they're very large format. They're printing blueprints or signage for your conferences and events. So it's a very different scale than your home printer. I don't work on those. In my spare time, I'm here in San Diego, so we enjoy getting out in the sunlight, traveling, baking, having wine. You know, it's a rough life. But it's a fabulous time here in San Diego, and I'm glad that you guys hopefully had some sunshine down here. The marine layer kind of comes and goes. But so we'll get started. You all have a very unique opportunity as leaders of your colleges, your universities, your sites, your laboratories. Wherever you are working, you have a unique role that you can bring in so many different people and perspectives and lead them along the way and really drive what the culture is that you want to be around. So you as grad students can really dictate how do you treat people around you? How inclusive are you? What could we be doing together to be better? And those are initiatives that you can drive. So we're going to take a look at some of those opportunities of how we can interact with those around us and drive the culture that we want. So we can create a respectful, positive working environment where everyone can show up as their best selves to do their best science. So there's lots of numbers. You can see across, I won't read all of them. We're not here for all the numbers today, but just know that there are many people around you that have experienced these types of situations and at various significances and impact to their lives. But we want to make sure that we create an area of inclusiveness and an area that everyone feels like they can show up and be a part of the community. So there are some harmful behaviors. There's also some unacceptable behaviors. I think those are typically easier to understand and have additional clarity. But having microaggressions, passive-aggressive sticky notes, those are also a form of microaggressions. Making somewhat assumptions about people's ability to do the work, or making people feel uncomfortable or unwelcome and that they are not included and that therefore they cannot be a part of the work. All of these can start escalating towards more serious behaviors and feelings, and also recourse, not only for others around you, but yourself, especially when you start going into corporations and things where HR is there to protect the business, but also the people around you. So what are some examples of harmful behaviors? Just because it doesn't rise to sexual harassment, it doesn't make it acceptable. If we start addressing the low-level unwelcome behaviors, we can then try to prevent the escalation to sexual harassment or sexual violence, for that matter, as well. Not all jokes are appropriate for workplace situations. And while some of those jokes are fine around your friend groups or situationals, there is a level of professionalism and inclusivity that are needed when you're in those types of situations. So think before you speak. But also, if you see someone making those jokes, you can either talk to them one-on-one, or you could address them at a different time, or call out, or ask to explain why that joke is funny. It's a good one. The more severe the behavior, the less often it'll get repeated to make a threshold of harassment. If you are harassing people, or if you see harassment, calling it out is one of the first ways to create a conversation around it, create an opportunity to help the person who's being harassed get out of it, or make sure that they feel okay. So if you see something, speak up. That's a very common saying across culture, or across corporations as well, but also probably in your laboratories, that if you see something that you deem inappropriate and you don't feel comfortable talking to them, you can always talk to someone with a little more authority, whether that's a manager, a lab professional, a teacher, etc. So speak up, and we'll build a better location together, a better culture. So Title IX and Title VI are both two areas of laws that help protect against harassment, but as with everything, that we are the people that can actually build around it. So I'll let you read what each of those is. But this does apply at academics. There are protected, what's the word I want? There are protected classes, thank you. That is the word I wanted. That are safe everywhere, and across hiring into an organization, across discrimination within an organization, and those protected classes do help have some inclusivity, because those are, you cannot be discriminated against for, but there are protections in place. And we're gonna go into some situations and looking at what we can do to respond to those situations. In this case, we're all gonna be bystanders, and you're gonna observe a situation. We have the different scenarios coming up, and that's why we would like you to have people to chat with and talk about how you can move forward with these different areas, and we will call on the different tables to find out what would you do. Assess the situation. You never want to try to escalate the situation, but if we can mitigate or reduce the hostility, and then intervene if it's necessary and safe for you. You never want to put yourself in a situation where you also become a victim. But we'll talk through the different situations. So it can be hard to respond. The care situation, confront the situation, alert others, redirect attention, and engage in peers is often a safer way to go about intervening in a harassment situation. And we try to make a better culture around us to move forward. So, if someone comes up to you telling them that they felt harassed by you, it's a moment of reflection. It can also be very personally hurting, emotional. It can lead to very defensive attitude. And understand at that point, by this time that someone is able to come up to you and say, I felt harassed by this, or I felt uncomfortable by this, that has taken a lot of internal strength as well as determination in trying to understand what's going on. So if this happens to you, I know it can be hard, but try not to be defensive. Acknowledge that there was something that caused this. Apologize for your actions and not necessarily the emotions that were caused by those interactions, because you cannot control someone else's emotion or emotional response to something you did. So you can take ownership for your actions and understand, try to be empathetic that it has caused someone else to feel this way. And then learn. Let's come to an understanding and learn and take tomorrow to be a better day. So we'll continue to move on. We have 6 different scenarios. We'll see how many we get through. They are all based on actual events experienced by grad students. And so through this, we want to ask some of these questions as we talk through the scenario and what is being addressed in each scenario. And so take a moment to think about, what is your reaction to it? Why does it cause that? What is being harmful or maybe a problem in each scenario? How can you support the person who's being targeted? What's something that you can do or take action? How might it impact the department culture or your corporation or your laboratory environment? What could you do to prevent this type of interaction or harm? And what office can you consult for support? Can you go to the student union? Can you go to your teachers? Can you go to departments? Anything like that? And what is your role? What is your responsibility? You might be that I show up and I try to be a good person. And that's the level of responsibility that you feel you are accountable for. Maybe it's that you want to encourage and grow the culture around this department. So you have a role in this. And you can lead by example, and you can call out what you deem inappropriate. So let's go through scenarios. Would you like me to read them, or you're all good just reading? Would you like me to? You want me to read them out? Okay. What was that? I will read them. You're entering a shared graduate student office and overhear 2 people talking about a fellow grad student who identifies as a trans woman. The people are making inappropriate comments regarding the student's body. When you walk in, they continue talking, and when questioned, they say, "Oh, it's okay. I can say these things because I identify as queer." So now we'll spend a couple moments. Please take in your own reaction to this initially. Talk among your tables, and we'll start a conversation. Give you a couple moments. Alrighty, I see that some of the conversation's dying down, so we'll circle back. Andrew has the microphone, and he's the only other name I know besides Sophie. So we're going to start with Andrew in the back. Can you tell us something that your table chatted about with this scenario? And then we'll go and call on some of the other tables or ask for volunteers.
We could definitely ask for volunteers after this. I would say at my particular table, we had a tough time differentiating between how we would like to respond and how we would actually respond in this scenario. I know myself, I tend to uncomfortably laugh at times. So, you know, I might laugh not because I think it's actually funny, but because I'm uncomfortable and I'm like, I don't know what else to do here. So this is gonna be my reaction. I think we all agreed that was not the right approach, obviously. But
Might be some mixed signals there.
Exactly. But it was very tough for us to figure out, okay, well, what would we actually do? And that's something that we deliberated on quite a bit.
Very good. Did any table, is there a volunteer that came up with an idea of what they would like to do? If we don't have volunteers, I'm going to just start picking.
I know who to volunteer.
We have a hand.
Anybody?
We have a hand up.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, even better.
We were kind of talking that if the response there, oh, it's okay, I can say these things since I identify as queer. If it would be said in like an aggressive or sarcastic tone, I don't think we would engage in like an argument with a person, but rather maybe let someone know that inappropriate talk was going on in the office.
Wonderful. Which is addressing it, right? It's highlighting it. It highlights that it's happening and gets it to a higher authority that can maybe do something, especially if you don't feel comfortable interacting at that time. And we had a hand over here. Yes.
So it was interesting because I don't identify as a queer person, so in that situation my first reaction would be to be like, oh, okay, then I guess like you know better than I do, so I would just shut up. But I was discussing with my table mates, and I realized there's one thing I can do in this situation is, as the person, if someone were to say these things about you as a queer person, would you find it inappropriate? And that doesn't put my identity in jeopardy, but it also confronts them with what they're actually doing. So yeah, that was a good experience.
Very good. Great conversation. Sophie has another mic.
There we go, mic on. I was just going to say that our table also talked about, I think that we were all just in shock about commenting on someone's body, period, never mind in a workplace. And I think that because we were in shock, we'd like to think that we would say, who cares? You don't comment on someone's body regardless. And I think, Angeline, you made a good point about just because you're queer doesn't mean you can't be transphobic, just like women can be sexist too. It doesn't automatically nullify hurtful things that you say. So yeah, hopefully in this scenario, I like to think that I would just say, knock it off. don't do that anymore in the workplace. And I think that we also had touched on that sometimes as a grad student, I'm not sure if other people feel similarly, but sometimes the line between friend and work colleague can sometimes feel a little blurred. So sometimes we encounter scenarios that's like, okay, this is kind of on the fence, but as a graduate student, sometimes that's the line that we walk is between friends and work colleague. So I understand how that can make it difficult too.
Yeah? Yes, sir?
I think something here Rachel and I discussed is whatever you think is right, if it's not right, it's not the place for a conversation like this, right? And I personally think I'm not gonna be here changing, like teaching you how to behave properly, how to talk about this. It's just not the right place. And if I feel too offended, me personally would probably get angry and say this in angry words. But the bottom line is, I think whether your scheme of values allow for something like this, I don't know, maybe in your house they talk like this about everyone. it's just not the place for it. And that's the thing we should all learn. And we sort of agree when we walk into these office spaces, school places, classrooms. It is going to be different, and we're a society, we have to modulate ourselves accordingly, because otherwise, I don't know, it's chaos.
There's lots of chaos. All right. Any other volunteers to talk about what they were talking about for this scenario? All right, then we'll move on to the next scenario. A lab group that works in the same space as yours consists of 3 men and 1 woman named Jennifer. Each member of the lab group is working on a project together in which each is given a specific task from their advisor, Dr. Jones. He assigns each male student a data set to perform complex statistical analysis on, and assigns Jennifer the task of plotting all the data, asking if she can handle that. When Dr. Jones looks at the plots, you overhear him discussing some inconsistencies and insisting Jennifer must have made a mistake in the plotting. So we'll take a few minutes, digest that, and chat among your tables. And we'll come back here. All righty, let's circle back. Do we have any volunteers to start off this scenario?
I'm going to steal what he said, actually.
Sounds good. Collaboration.
We kind of talked about how this situation, you know, if you're just walking in, you might not work there, and you see that, you might, you know, you don't know if that student just started working here, like there could be other contexts, so it's kind of hard. But we said that kind of the best way to go around about that, in case there is something wrong, is to talk to Jennifer directly and ask if, you know, she's been picking up anything that might lead to an uncomfortable work environment, or if there's any context. And if there is, then it's like we can talk about how to actually fix the situation.
I think that's fabulous. Checking in with Jennifer to make sure that she's feeling all right and her opinion. Andrew has one.
Yes, hello, my name is Andrew.
Hello, Andrew. Other Andrew.
So all of us here are the conflict avoidance type, but besides from that, none of us would move or would do something directly to fight the situation, I guess, because it seems like we're not a party to it. It's happening in the same lab, and I don't know everything that's happening with the people on the other side of the lab, maybe. Maybe I'm just hearing the worst parts and there's something else happening here, I don't know. But certainly we would go to Jennifer and talk to her, at the very least to support her, see if she's doing okay, see if there is a problem here. And then after that, I'm not sure. But move from there, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. Gaining some additional information and then being able to figure out what is the next step, whether that's, you know, talking to Dr. Jones, if you have that relationship, if it's talking to another professor that has an open door policy or something along those lines. We had a comment over here.
Yeah, so I guess this is assuming that this kind of behavior has happened before.
I think that's how it reads overall.
Yes, right. Being privy to this, I would definitely just because of the power dynamics. If I was a student and was hearing this, I would take it to, you know, either another professor or like a dean or something. But the other thing that I thought of was it might be helpful to actually talk to the male students and just like have them correct Dr. Jones, say, oh no, actually it was wrong because of the data that I gave to her to plot, you know, something like that.
Those are all very good pieces of conversation. Anyone else? Maybe one more for this scenario?
Yeah, I think it would be important to highlight the margin for error in a 4-person team and just kind of just bring up the facts in a non-aggressive way, like, hey, there's 4 people on this team, you know, maybe we shouldn't just kind of focus on Jennifer and maybe really take a step back and look at the entire situation and see where the most likely route for error may have came from.
Yep, very good. Great comment. All right, we will move on to scenario 3. You're hanging out with a group of grad student friends. One of those friends usually wears loose-fitting clothing. It's just their style. Another one of your friends casually says, you know, loose-fitting clothing typically makes people look like bums. Why don't you wear something tighter and show off that figure? Ooh. All right. We'll chat a few minutes and then we'll come back. All righty. Try to hit one more scenario after this. But Andrew, do you have a team member at the table who's willing to talk about what they...
Absolutely.
Woohoo.
We discussed a couple of different approaches. We noted that one would be, being concerned about making someone even more uncomfortable in the moment, and so maybe, changing the conversation and then waiting to take them aside later and sort of debriefing and checking if they're okay.
I think that's a great starting point. Make sure that the friend's okay. How did they take it? What was their reaction? Did they take it as a joke? I think we all had a pretty instantaneous reaction when I finished reading it. So, how about another volunteer? In the back? Oh, sorry. Next.
I read the scenario and I realized that I was in a scenario like this. Like we were playing a card game, and there's like a sexually inappropriate joke, whatever, like that, right? But I think it was not like the first time I was hanging out with this group of people, but we were like in the same cohort as grad students, and we were just hanging out. We were having a good time, whatever. We're playing this card game, and then he pulls out this card, and then he kind of makes like an inappropriate joke at one of the girls in the group, and we all kind of like went quiet, and we were all kind of like, and I think actually we did what I think someone just mentioned is what they would do. We just kind of like switched the topic really quickly, and then like afterwards, like we texted and we were kind of like, that was a little weird, right? And we debriefed it like the next day at lunch. And I think that girl was kind of like, yeah, it was a little weird, like it wasn't great, like it like I think he was trying to say it in like, like lighthearted or whatever, but it came off kind of weird. And so, yeah, I guess I don't know if she ended up telling him that she felt uncomfortable with it, but we did go about that like situation and that resolution where we just moved the topic as fast as possible and then debriefed it, and then we're like, are you good? Like that was a little bit weird. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that was practically what happened, and I felt like that scenario like resonated with the scenario.
It does happen. And I'm very glad you checked in on your friend, and as well as then calling out your friends can also be some of the hardest things to do.
So our table was talking about making some sort of joke that both shuts it down, but also kind of keeps the mood somewhat lighthearted, both for letting them know it's not okay and letting everyone else in the group know it's not okay, but also in a group of grad students, you need to interact with these people for several more years. And if this is the first time something like this happens, shutting it down more lightly is, in the long run, might be better than just completely cutting them out.
Right. I think we have one in the middle.
So this has also happened to me on multiple occasions. So if I were to hear it happening to somebody else, I would, I don't think it's fair to always expect the person who's being harassed to talk to the harasser. Like that's not, maybe it's okay sometimes, but I think it's really up to the allies in the room or the people who are standing by to help defend, right? So, I mean, if I were to hear something like that, I would probably make a joke out of it, but I would also say, like, as a person who often likes to wear very loose-fitting clothing, it's a sensory thing that a lot of people have, especially if you're on the spectrum, or if you have ADHD, you're neurodivergent. A lot of people just don't like the feel of tight clothing, and so it's absolutely perfectly fine for, them not to have their body ogled all the time, and then also be able to be comfortable in their own skin. So I think just maybe treating it as like an educating moment, as well as, like talking about your own experiences. Like I can say what I've experienced in my life, and then that way it's less of an attack on the person, and then helping them understand where it's coming from.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. One more here in the center.
I think I would just respond with like, regardless of whether it was about me or not, just be like, hey man, that was a really gross thing to say. Like, even if it like, you know, you never know what somebody means by saying something like that. Like they could have not genuinely meant anything or they could have, but I think it's worth, you know, making it known that you, whether it's said about you or not, that's not something that that person should feel comfortable saying, at least in the presence of you. I think that's, you know, important to establish those boundaries, especially in a work relationship. So,
Yes, the blurred lines between work and friendship. But it's also the conversation of what are we comfortable with and what is the culture that we want. So I believe we're just about at the top of the hour. Oh, we have 15. Okay, so we will do one more then. All right. Scenario number 4. You are a TA for a well-known male professor at your university. Everything is going well until a female student comes to you with a complaint about the professor. The professor has been making comments about her appearance and more than once has insinuated that if she sleeps with him, she'll get a high grade no matter what. The student is scared and doesn't want the professor to know that she has complained, but also doesn't feel comfortable being in his class anymore. Take it in, and we'll chat, and we'll come back here in a few minutes. righty. As we come on back. Alrighty, team. We have our first volunteer. Jessica had such an immediate reaction of, this is what we're gonna do. So I'd love to hear it.
My reaction was because there is a definitive correct answer. The response is, I am a mandated reporter. If you continue telling me this information, I will have to report it and include your name. If you do not wish for me to report it, you should leave the room right now. The end.
Alrighty. Do we have other folks who have their reactions of what they would do? What maybe they're...
I just want to second that. It's like, I think this is a very clear Title IX scenario, and we should all know exactly what to do here. That's it.
Wonderful. In the back? And then the back center will be the next one.
Okay, I'm going to say I totally agree that this is a Title IX situation, but I know that sometimes Title IX isn't, like the Title IX office isn't always enough of a resource. And I know that because I know some female engineering students who have reported comments of harassment to a Title IX office before and received a comment of, I don't know if this is that severe, we're not going to investigate it. So I guess that's something that I want to highlight in this discussion too, is that like, yes, this is a Title IX issue and you should report it to Title IX, but it might not be enough, which really sucks. And I think as, like, I'm at Cornell, which has a grad union, and I guess in our case, like, we can get like a union steward. We can try to file this as like a legal issue too, and like really double down that this has to be investigated. But I just wanted to add that as a piece of the conversation.
Thank you. And in the center there?
Still totally agree, Title IX situation. I just wanted to mention that to the point about you should leave the room, I think some schools also have confidential resources, so instead of saying like leave right now, you can point them to other people who they can talk to who will not be mandatory reporters, just to talk through their options. So looking into whether your school has those or not might be good versus just pushing them out immediately.
Yeah, finding more resources. That's great. Now I propose to this table, and Andrew, find me a volunteer to answer this question. Does it change anything if the genders are reversed? Andrew, do you want to answer?
There we go. I can answer for the people that I see shaking their heads, which is no. It should not change.
Yeah.
Does anybody?
It's still a Title IX offense. Still gender.
Pretty clear cut. Oh, I see. Yeah, your hand's going up.
I mean, you know, normally it's like, oh yeah, no brainer. You just flip the. But like in a lot of situations, it's like people do see a difference, and it's weird. I mean, in my opinion, it's weird, and there really shouldn't be a difference. And if you feel harassed, your feelings should always be valid, and you should have someone to talk about that with them. And yeah, no, if the roles are reversed, you're completely valid in feeling that way, and you should seek remediation. Is that the word? Yeah.
Thank you for speaking up. All right, we'll go through one more. Dr. Taro and a few other group members often use unprofessional language such as profanity when communicating during their Zoom meetings, while other students remain silent. One of them, Michelle, messages you that she feels uncomfortable and no longer wants to join, but feels she may miss out on important opportunities in the research group. When discussing the issue with one of the male grad students in the group, he tells her, "That's just how he is." All righty. So I'll start by calling out my unconscious bias. Nowhere does it say that Dr. Taro in there is male, but I changed the last sentence too. That's just how he is. So we just had a discussion based off my unconscious bias. It could be a female that is also using the profanities. It could be either. Either way, it's Dr. Taro that uses the profanities. Unconscious bias. But how do we work through those things? What was some of the conversations we were having around the tables?
Something we were just talking about is like coming from different cultures. Like, okay, the first thing we were talking about is it against university policy to use unprofessional language? And that's, okay, if it is against university policy, then sure, you have some grounds for reporting the professor or whatever. But if it's more of a personal preference to not be around people who use profanity in their language, that's more of a issue, what we were talking about, that, well, I brought this up. It's like, when you're going through life, you're gonna meet people who you don't necessarily agree with, or clash with your culture in different ways. And you're always going to need a way to move past that, because your life can't stop with one conversation or at one person. And so, you know, there are some things that you might have to decide about yourself, and like, I don't know. Well, I sort of lost my track of thought, but I can't. Yeah. Yeah. It's more of something that you would have to deal with yourself, I think. But respect is the number one thing, and as long as the profanity is not being aimed at you, then yeah, it's what you're willing to settle with, I suppose. And what type of profanity? Anyway.
Thank you. Up front?
Hi, I wanted to bring up one point, which is that assuming that we were communicating in English, there is no profanity that is neutral. Profanity that we have developed is putting someone down, even if you're not targeting at anyone, even if you're using it as a unit of measurement. You're using profanity that is either misogynistic or racist. So it's important to know where words come from and how they can be causing microaggressions to the people around you.
Nope.
Yeah, I think that in this situation, it's important to remember, like, even if you're using a word or something that you feel is completely neutral and doesn't have to do with a certain group, or maybe, you know, like I have an example where I'm getting a Nordic minor and there's queer studies about that, and, you know, a student came to me and said they weren't comfortable with the use of the word queer, and even though it was in a studies, you know, context, and I think it's important to have respect, and even if you might not think that that was what your heart was behind when you were saying that, you can say, you know, this student who I have to work with isn't comfortable with this, so I'm going to do my best to avoid it regardless, because I'd rather just avoid that conversation and making somebody else feel like they can't avoid a work meeting when this is something that I could redirect, possibly.
Very good.
Sorry, so I have a lot of opinions, I guess. So I think a lot of this depends on context, right? So like how the Dr. Taro's maybe reputation is in general. Like, are they amenable to, you know, to discussion, or if maybe not from the person who is uncomfortable, then from one of the dude bros that is comfortable with Dr. Taro. So like, because if it's me, I use profane language, like, a lot. Especially at home, I try to keep it, you know, I try to dumb it down or diet down when I'm at work, but, you know, occasionally it slips. And so if somebody were to come up, and I try to be the kind of person that is approachable, and I would want to know if I'm making somebody feel uncomfortable, and then I would adjust my actions based on that, because this is it kind of goes back to like the we're at work kind of thing. And even if I personally believe that maybe people should learn to live with, like, words are fun. But if they don't want to, maybe I shouldn't force them to do that at work, right? That could be personal development in another way.
Time and place, but calling out awareness. Very good. One more in the back.
Important point is that somebody on the team does feel uncomfortable, so it's important that something is done about that. Even if that's just how Dr. Taro is, they can always change. And I know people who swear a lot, but if you just tell them, hey, you swear a lot, and this is kind of making me feel weird, then usually they'll tone it down. So maybe somebody in the group can just have a quick one-on-one with Dr. Taro and say, hey, and they don't even have to say Michelle's name necessarily. They could just say that they feel uncomfortable with it. So it takes the onus or the, sort of relation to Michelle out of it. I think that could go a long way, just really simple. Hey, the swearing is a little bit over the top. Can you tone it down?
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for a great conversation about all the different scenarios. In summary, there's some harmful behaviors and prohibited behaviors. Title IX and Titles 9 and Title 6 are there to protect the classes and give you a peace of mind that you should be able to show up to your working area and be your authentic self. We talked a little bit about consent and then through all the different scenarios. So be the change you wish to be in the world, but really make the culture that you want to be a part of. You, by leading by example, have the most influence that you can have. So I hope you had a good conference, and I will pass it back to Sophie.
Alrighty, well, thank you all again for really participating in that discussion. That was really wonderful to be part of and to hear, so thank you. And that's it, we got through it. That is the end of 2024 CEDAR's Student Day. So just a review of what we did. Didn't it look so daunting this morning? Look at that, it's already almost 4:30. When did that happen? But in seriousness, I really hope that you were able to gather just a few things today that help you move forward, both with this week in CEDAR and also forward in your own career and your own research. Hopefully you're able to get something out of every talk today. And so I appreciate you all showing up and being so attentive. I want to extend a huge thank you to quite a few people, so bear with me. The first is all the presenters today. Thank you so much for showing up. They volunteered their time to prepare slides, come talk to us. And it's because they care about the future of our field and for the field of science. So a huge thank you to all of them. Second huge thank you to our wonderful student committee, another volunteer committee. This was their premier year, so we tried instituting a student committee this year, and it was a huge success. So Michelle Bowie from Cornell, Vincent Ladvina from UAF, and Sarah Ledigen from UC Boulder. We couldn't do all the events that we're going to plan on doing this week without them. And then a thank you to the entire CSSC committee. They've been really helpful with giving us ideas and prompts for developing the agenda for today. Huge thank you to Maggie, who's out front, and all of CPAS for all the logistics. They were amazing in getting all of that figured out. AV team in the back, you guys crushed it. Thank you so much. And finally, NSF. Without them, we would not be here today. So thank you, NSF. Yes. Big thank you. Perfect, and then just a reminder that student involvement at CEDAR does not end today. We have lots of events going on. Today there'll be a movie night in Porthole, which is across from where the swimming pool, I think, used to be before the water was drained. So come to that. And join the WhatsApp if you haven't done that already, if you want to chit-chat with fellow CEDAR students. So I'll leave that up for a second in case anyone needs to scan a QR code. Okay. Next slide. And finally, please do our survey. If you check the agenda online, there may have been a semi-aggressive "do our survey" in the agenda for today. That was an internal thought that accidentally made its way to the agenda. But, you know, there's some truth to it. I would really appreciate it if you did our survey. It'll take 5 minutes. You can always amend it later in the week if you sleep on it and change your mind. Yeah, if you loved all the talks from today, please tell me. I would love to hear that. If you hated anything from today, also please tell me. I will not cry too much. And then I do also have a bit of bribery. I have some candy that I'll give you if you do the survey. I need to get it from my car. But yeah, come find me and I'll give you some candy. And that is it. We have an outdoor activity in about like 15 minutes that we need to go set up. But thank you again for coming, and we hope you have a great week.